SEO, hello and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. I am your host, Cade Thomas. We're talking about two movies directed by Olivier Assayas today. It's Personal Shopper from 2016 and Clouds of Sils Maria from 2014. But before we get into that, I have to introduce our panel today. As always, I have my co-host, Diane, and this week we are joined with our guest, Luca Silver. How are you both doing?
Hola!
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Diane?
As always.
Mm-hmm. As always.
Great.
As
Yeah,
always,
as
you're great.
always.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, Luca, this is your first time on the show, and we're so happy to have you here. You're a filmmaker. You're an actor. And I love your work. I had found your movie, The Naked Eye, through, I don't even know how I found it, but I always look up, different films and stuff. And I'm always looking at people on YouTube and seeing their works and seeing what other talent's out there. And when I saw that movie, I was blown away because of just how amazingly personal it was, how the vibe of it was so unique and interesting. It was beautifully shot in like a very kind of it's digital, but it's like got some like digital grain and everything, and it wasn't it was intentionally slow paced and everything, but in a way that was interesting throughout, and that's something that is incredibly hard to do in a modern film landscape. So anyways, that's how I found you. And then later I saw things that you did. And I'm just, and I've seen where you I had to follow this person. I have to know what they're all about. And I love your Twitter and everything where you kind of post your ideas and thoughts and everything. So Luca, I don't know, talk about yourself a little bit.
Oh, that means so much that you say that. Because, when you're putting together a film as like a micro budget type of thing, and I don't know, just trying to get a few hits on YouTube or get your name out there or something, like the fact that I don't even know how long it's been. November 21 was when I released The Naked Eye. To hear that like so long after I did the movie, it really like puts it in perspective. And it's so hard to look at your own movie that way. But when you say it like that, you're like, oh my God. I'm so happy that it connected with you. And I'm so happy that it led you to me and me to you as well. Okay, talk about myself a little bit. Okay, so I have always wanted to make movies. I cannot think of a time when I did not know that that's exactly what I wanted to do. Maybe I wanted to be a firefighter for like a day in first grade, but that was, you know what I mean? Like that was just gone. I will tell a little bit of a story. When I was born, there was like a TV in the corner of the hospital room, and as I'm like being delivered, Star Wars was playing on the TV, and at that time, I went by Luke. Like my parents named me Luke, and so my dad told the nurse. And the nurse is just like looking back and forth from him to the TV for like, she's trying to figure out if my middle name was going to be Skywalker, but my parents didn't go for it. And then, later on, I just kind of thought to myself, like, I don't really like respond to Luke when people call me. I like don't hear my own name. So maybe I should like pick something else that like, maybe if I choose it, then I'll, like commit to it. And so I started going by Luca Silver, and that's my mother's maiden name. So around the time that I sort of like started going by that name, I feel like my filmmaking got into like a more serious place. And it was less so like friends hanging out, just making cool videos for class just to like get an A. And it was more like, no, like let me start thinking about like moving images themselves and like what does it mean to put something on a screen, and the power that they have over people and stuff like that. Maybe think about it in a deeper way. So I feel like a project that really kicked it all off was this thing called Fantasy. And Fantasy was like my friend coming up to me and going, "Hey, do you want to do like a little photo shoot, like a fashion thing?" And I was like, "I have a better idea. Let's make a fashion film." And 2 weeks later, I came back to her with like an entire plot line and storyboards and costumes, and you know what I mean? Like she was like, "Whoa."
Mhm.
And so over the summer, we shot it. I took a year to edit. I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to, just copy my favorite filmmakers, basically. And it came out in a way that I didn't expect because uh, there was one night that kind of like changed everything. And here's what happened. I was working as a delivery driver for a local company called Nashville Delivers. And, it's like Uber Eats kind of thing, right? So I'm like getting somebody's dinner. I'd like take a pizza to their house. And it's this super rich neighborhood. Like everybody's house is on a big hill, the sun's setting. So it's kind of getting dark outside. So I walk up to this door, right? And you can just see in the window now because the light is right. And in this guy's window, I see an Emmy on the mantle. And so I was like, whoa, okay, I'm not leaving this place until I talk to somebody about this Emmy, you know?
Mhm.
And, here's your pizza, have a good night. But wait, how did you get that Emmy, by the way? And, I had this whole conversation with him. Oh, I'm a filmmaker. Oh, that's crazy. You have an Emmy, but like, I'm a filmmaker too, like
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And it all came to You Good Editor. And I was like, oh my God, editing is my favorite thing in the entire world. And they were like, all right, well, in 4 weeks, you'll get a call from a guy named Ben. And so in 4 weeks, I got a call from a guy named Ben, and they were like, hey, we work at Yamaha and we're doing this feature documentary. You would come in and be an editor on it. And I was like, oh shit, Yamaha. I know Yamaha.
Mhm.
Wow. And it was literally like my dream come true. I was 19, I was editing a feature film and I was getting paid. That was like,
Wow.
everything I'd ever wanted. Um, but there were like a lot of hard truths that I had to understand about working in the film industry and doing that kind of job. And there was so much growth and, like camping out at the studio for days on end, just trying to finish a movie. And, after that, I, um, I realized that I really wanted to leave school and like I didn't want to be in film school anymore because, I was already doing it. So I decided to quit school, but my parents told me like they were like maybe don't do that. But I said I really feel like this is my path. They said, okay, well, the point of a degree is to prove to people that you can commit to something and follow through with it. You know what I mean? And so I said, what better to show people I can commit to something and follow through than to make a movie and just see it realized?
Mhm.
So that's how The Naked Eye started sprouting out.
Mhm.
I wanted to prove that dropping out of college wasn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
So horror movie, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I thought, what's good to do with that? Ooh, sexy and scary at the same time. Combine those two. That's a pretty interesting feeling.
Mhm.
And then I thought, all these horror movies that I like, you always got to start with like, what is scary to me?
Mhm.
And I thought, I cannot think of anything more terrifying than like being naked. And also like being naked, maybe in a movie. That is even more terrifying. So I thought, all right, well, that's what I got to do. You look at your art sometimes and I, sometimes I feel like kind of bored by it. I'm like, why don't I like what I'm making? Right. And I think what I distilled it down to was like, I'm not taking any risks. I'm not like nervous about making this. There has to be some sort of like, I don't know, a little bit of danger involved, maybe,
Mhm.
to keep it interesting. So I was like, that is such a big risk. Maybe I should just go for it?
Yeah.
And and then the story kind of like sprouted from there, like the whole like man in the window sort of thing, and the color palette and the shooting on the iPhone. These are all like practical concessions that I made. It's like you putting yourself in a box or whatever.
Mhm.
But if you just make it look like you always intended it to be that way, then you
Yeah.
work inside the box and it's great. You don't need too much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been like a little bit of the journey so far. And the naked eye has been like the most successful thing I've ever done. So I
Mhm.
feel so gratified by that, and like so um like right place, right time, like lucky kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've met some people through it. I mean, we're talking to each other right
Mhm.
now, aren't we?
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
it's an amazing
also,
situation that you can put out this work online and get an audience and get people who sort of see that. That similar thing happened with Ribbon, is that, there's a whole community of people that's putting these works out online, as a way of, I mean, it sort of democratizes, whatever the buzzwords are, of the film, and it's fascinating because it's because I think a lot of film festivals are with people that are of a more elevated sort of caliber, but to see people that can just make things from scratch, that can make things with just the utensils that they have on a no budget, I think it sort of shows the real artists that are there that can really make things with nothing. And I think that seeing that where you made that with just an iPhone is extraordinary, and it's extraordinary that that can sort of be done in this modern age.
yeah, I wanted people to like not notice it too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever I tell people afterwards, they're like, "Holy shit! Like what?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, but honestly, I chose the iPhone to shoot on because it has this really, really nice like grain structure to it, and it
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of 16 millimeter. So it's like
Yeah.
it's like really good quality, but just low quality enough that it has like a life to it. Like the image like feels alive.
And you're
So
shooting it
that's really
low
cool.
light, right, as well, and that
Low
kind of
light,
adds to
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Whole movie was lit by desk lamps, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like finding stuff in my garage. I'm like gathering flashlights and like
Mm-hmm.
taping them to the walls I'm talking about, you know? I'm shooting
Yeah.
the whole movie at like 3 in the morning. So one time, like one of the lights kind of like fell down because I didn't tape it too good. And, I was like gonna wake my
Mm-hmm.
parents up and, all that kind of stuff. It was
Yeah.
so fun, but now I'm in such a mode of like, I want to work with as many people as possible. I want to become a better collaborator, not just a better, having ideas, you know what I mean? Like I want to really learn how to like work with bigger crews or delegate as a director or, departments and stuff like that. There's so much growth that can happen,
Well, yeah.
you know?
So, like, the Naked Eye was during the pandemic, right? It was during
Yeah.
sort of an isolating time, and so I think it was sort of a film about that as well in some sort of ways. I think you really felt that, and I guess now that we're on the other end of that, that it's you're now able to explore the sort of collaborative nature that's so much part of filmmaking and everything.
Right.
But it is, I think you'll be able to look back and see sort of like early filmmakers and sort of their first films and things, and sort of see what a Luca Silver type film at its bare bones, what that
Mm.
is. Yeah. It's going to
Mm.
be interesting to sort of compare that.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do with a big budget because,
Mhm.
I could do whatever with a desk lamp, you know what I mean? So, like,
You
yeah,
could
but
build a big,
someday,
you could build a
yeah.
bigger and better box.
Oh,
Boxes,
yeah, yeah. There you go. There you go.
boxes are fun to work in when you
Mm.
create the box,
Mhm.
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah. There
Yeah.
you go. I
There you
mean,
go.
that'd be the dream, wouldn't it? Is to like work on your own terms and
Mhm.
say what you want to say through the medium and really like treat it like you're an artist, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
not, I guess, uh hmm, commercial filmmaker, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with like working on a big budget as like a commercial filmmaker, but sometimes I feel like the more money, I've heard, it's harder to
Absolutely.
maintain creative control.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to, I guess my goal right now is to appreciate the time that I have right now when I have no money.
Yeah.
I want to savor that, because someday maybe if something
Mhm.
cool happens, it'll be harder to, talk about ideas or get things out. So yeah,
Well, I
I'm
think
in a
that
mode.
as
Yeah.
you're developing like a group, or even like I see a lot of indie filmmakers want to emulate the sort of Hollywood system, or to have a large crew and a large, all this stuff and everything. And I'm like, you're losing some sort of intimacy there that is so great about indie filmmaking, that is so unique about it. And I do wish that some indie filmmakers didn't go that route. There is something great about a small crew and a small group of people making something great. And it's something unique that sets it apart from Hollywood filmmaking that I hope people hold on to.
I'd like to get to a point where the movies feel more like a community art project than like a thing that we're making in order to sell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do a project right now called, it's a tentative title, but it sounds about right. The title of the movie right now is called "What is Sex?" ? Okay, and it's like it's this parody of a sex ed video, and that's kind of like all I'll say. Maybe to like keep a little bit of mystery about it because it's still like being formulated.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about this newest project is that it feels like the people who are working on it are taking like a personal stake in it. You know what I mean? This is an expression of me. This bit is an expression of me, and this bit is an expression of them, and et cetera, et cetera. I love that so much. You can see so many people in the finished project, or in the finished product, I think. And then the other thing that's going on is the acting bit.
Yes, I'll talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So the movie, the picture, the motion picture, it's called Hidden Flora. Okay. And it's by a filmmaker named Ryan Rocks. And Ryan Rocks is just popping off in New Mexico. I mean, in the whole Southwest, really. I mean, they have made 5 short films in the past 2 years, and now they're making a feature. That's crazy growth, And so the circumstances of how I met Ryan are, an old story. It was just kind of like we showed up at the same place at the same time, and it just kind of happened. But then, we split apart, right? And Ryan starts going on their filmmaking journey, and I was, continuing on my path or whatever. And now we've just sort of met up again. So Ryan came to me not long ago and said, "Hey, I wrote something, and I could not imagine doing it without you." And I went, "Whoa!" Like it's not every day that somebody says that to you,
Yeah.
And then I find out that this script that I'm reading is like, it's an autobiographical story about Ryan and their growing up, And although it's abstracted, in the same way that a lot of filmmakers make movies about their own lives, you have to make it a cinema reality, not a reality, But how personal the story was super exciting.
Yeah.
How exciting like some of the scene challenges were. I mean, it's a lot of intimate scenes. It's a lot of, hey, you meet somebody in the morning and 15 minutes later you're in bed together, It's that kind of stuff. So honestly, going into it, I'm like, I've never done this before. I'm super nervous. I mean, I've got like personal issues to deal with anyway. Like I'm just trying to get through the workday,
Yeah.
But I did ask advice from a family member who works in film as well, and they were saying, look, when you got to do scenes like that, just remember that it's your job. Lighting person does their job, camera person sets up the camera, so and so does this, so and so does that. Your job for today is to be in bed and pretend to have an orgasm or whatever. You know what I mean? So that part of it like kept things in perspective, and the nervousness totally went away because the intimacy coordinator was there. I've never worked with an intimacy coordinator before, but like that.
Yet another job that did not exist 10 years ago. See what I mean?
Yeah.
You are so right. Exactly. And I'm racking my brain as to like, how did this job not exist 10 years ago. You know,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
could not imagine doing some of the stuff that we were doing,
Mhm.
shooting this movie without somebody there, because it was just all about safety and comfort and creating a
Mhm.
good place to, play and to make art and to explore shit. You know what I mean? So there were times when it was like, okay, here's the boundaries. You know what I mean? We're nobody's making a move until you say you're good, and I say we're good. You know what I mean? So it could not have been safer. It could not have been more fun. It could not have been more enjoyable. And we're going back to finish the rest of the movie in early summer, and I just can't wait. You know?
Yeah, that's exciting. And that they have there's a Instagram page I know, right? That's Hidden Flora that people can follow. Correct.
Yep.
Yep. And
Yes.
so get updates on that and everything. So that's exciting. That's really, it is really exciting.
It really is
Yeah.
exciting.
And they have
Yes.
there's an Indiegogo, right? Too, I think for them, right?
Yes,
That
they
people
are
can.
still doing crowdfunding.
Mhm.
So if anybody hears this and wants to support a queer coming of age movie that maybe can, reflect some personal experiences that teenagers have gone through. You know what I mean? Maybe some people who haven't seen themselves on the screen could see their story a little bit. If that sounds like something that you'd like to support, they're still looking for help.
Mhm.
They're always looking for help. We need help.
Mhm.
So consider.
Absolutely. And I also did want to mention you did a music video recently that what you shot that. Did you shot it and edited it? Is that what you did? Yeah.
Yeah,
And I love that. It was beautiful. Hmm.
oh, thank you so much.
Hmm.
I really appreciate that. I co-directed that
Co-directed.
with one of my closest friends, Cleo Saint Leclaire, and they're a filmmaker as well. And we were approached by a friend of a friend, as it kind of happens.
Hmm.
You're on one set, and then you start talking about something else, and a couple months later, that becomes a set, and then you make a new.
Yeah.
So it all came about like that. And Cole Waldrop, this artist in Nashville, like on the come up in the indie scene, and we really dug some of the music. And so we picked that track specifically because both of us, me and Cleo, had like um we could see the black and white, we could see the 2007 vibes or whatever.
Mm.
So we talked it all over. Cole had this camcorder from I think 2006 actually, and we said, okay, we're gonna take this camcorder that was not designed to be used in narrative filmmaking or whatever. It's like for home videos.
Hmm.
We're gonna take this camcorder and we're gonna treat it like we're Bergman, or like we're some the artsy filmmaker or whatever.
Hmm.
And that like dichotomy just kept producing like more and more ideas. How how simple can we make it, how like to the beat can we cut it, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
um and it kind of took on like a life of its own, because the subject matter, the song's called Sober. It's on Cole Waldrop's YouTube if anyone wants to check that out as well. It's a nice little song. It's sad pop, so you can dance to it but you're crying while you're dancing. It's kind of like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the song is called Sober. I'm not going to do a deep dive or whatever, but the themes are apparent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it honestly was a great opportunity to reach out to the people around me and talk about addiction and talk about certain things that maybe have been left unspoken in life. And so I learned so much that I never would have gone down that avenue if not for the art that we were making. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was going to AA meetings that I've never gone to before. I was reading from the big book. Somebody was kind enough to buy me a copy at the meeting. And you know what I mean? We were trying to maybe inject some like some truth into it, and take it from being a pop song to maybe like talking about something a little I don't know, based in reality, I guess. Um, and so that was fun, like all these different elements of artsiness and reality kind of colliding, and we were trying to experiment with the music video thing.
Absolutely. And people can find all of this on your YouTube channel. We've linked that out in the description, and follow you on social media. What's your handle? It's
at Luca Silver 01, and it's all lowercase and one word.
That's wherever on Instagram, Twitter, everything.
Yeah. Because apparently someone got Luca Silver before me, so I had to do the 01. I don't know what that's about.
That's awful. Tragedy of a lifetime.
Yeah,
that is a tragedy.
What a Greek tragedy.
Are you also on TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok. I've made a conscious effort to not be on TikTok, but I guess I should. I mean, we live in the current year, don't we? So maybe I should be on TikTok. I just know for a fact, the way that my brain works, I'm going to get sucked into that thing, and I'm going to lose days of my life. I'm going to lose years of my life on that thing. I just know it. So if it comes to a point where I'm like, this is the next step maybe in like the whole filmmaking thing, I would definitely consider it. But like as a human being, I don't need that. It's personal.
I'll tell you.
Just stay away from the puppies. The puppies will get you every time.
Yeah, the cute
dogs and TikTok, man. They'll get you.
Yeah, I must say that has been one of the best ways to grow an audience has been through TikTok, and that has been a very fascinating thing to see that, people sort of interested in through the different podcasts. We've started doing this one, but through my other podcasts, that has been something that I've, it's surpassed my YouTube in a quicker amount of time. And so people, and it's just a different way to people to take in your content or your art or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I mean, that's definitely like the forefront of the culture right now. I think is on TikTok. It was like sort of the same for Vine, I guess, at a certain time, same for different social media. So I can definitely see why you're saying like, that's the place that you want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we got a show here to do, and we'll jump into that real quick. Quickly, wanted to update our audience. We did not win the trivia championship, so sorry about that, guys.
Didn't. We did finish higher than we ever have.
Yeah, so progress has been made.
Progress has been made.
On this linear trajectory, we will win a championship in, what do you say, like 3 to 4 years, Diane?
Well, it depends on how many more Jeopardy champions they have on those other teams.
Yeah.
We're going up against some heavyweights. That's the tough part.
Can't beat them. Can't beat them. They're too good. They know
they
too much.
don't follow instructions any better than anyone else. So I think that worked in our favor this time.
And I did want to quickly say that I did see Cocaine Bear this weekend, and
oh my gosh!
And
I can't believe you went to see it without me.
I went there with my father. It was family entertainment.
Oh, really?
We went to go see Cocaine Bear together.
I love Elizabeth Banks, and I love that she's done this movie.
The people in front of me, there was a whole family, 3 kids, and they brought them all to see Cocaine Bear, which they thought that was a smart decision. And they had some problems throughout it at different points.
Really?
There was a whole other story going along.
What's it rated?
It's rated R. There's some incredibly graphic mutilations in this movie.
Let's bring some children to that.
Yeah. And well, it's about a bear, right? So how harmful can it be? But no, Margot Martindale in this movie is extraordinary. She is the highlight of this movie, and she plays a park ranger where this bear ends up with me getting cocaine. And she is extraordinary, and all of her scenes are the highlight of the movie. And the worst part about the movie, it escalates. Its second act is its best part, but it falls apart in the end. It does not end satisfyingly. It doesn't really. But the heights that it soars to, it makes up for the low points. But it ends in kind of like I don't know, just a confused. Like I feel like that was changed or something, because it was not a good little ending. But
okay, but what's it going for? Is it like a horror comedy sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. It's a horror comedy. It's a black comedy. And it is. there are insane scenes that I can't believe a Hollywood picture would do this. Like it seems to revel in the violence that it does to these people that you wouldn't think deserve it, like, you know, but it is so shocking at times. And there's a scene. It is the point. It never reaches the heights of that, but there's a ambulance scene in which Depeche Mode's Just Can't Get Enough is playing. So I hosted 80s New Wave radio show in college, and so I love 80s New Wave. And so it's 80. It's one of my favorite tracks too. That album in particular, Speak and Spell. Anyways, it's great. And so that's playing, and there's a bear that's chasing them, and they're trying to shoot the spirit. I'm not going to spoil it. That scene in particular is so over the top, so grotesque, all to the tune of this 80s pop synth pop song, and it's pure cinema as far as I'm concerned. I have not seen a scene reach that height in a long time. It is an extraordinary scene, but nothing after it. And there's like an hour after that, or 45 minutes after that never reaches that height. But it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary.
By the end, would you still recommend despite the third act?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Go see this with the crowd, because I found myself laughing. It was an audience that's like, it walks this line of like being like, you feel awful for laughing at this, but you can't help yourself from laughing at just the horrible stuff that you're seeing on screen. It is, repeatedly, Margot Martindale scenes are some of the most hysterical scenes I've seen, and people, like, you feel like a crazy person for laughing at this, but there's other people that's laughing at this with you. People have to see this in theaters. I think it is a great experience. Cocaine Bear.
Based on a true story.
There was an actual Cocaine Bear.
I hope they do a franchise and they have the bear try different drugs next time. You know what I mean? They could really go off. There's so many to try.
I do think that they are heavily suggesting that this is. I mean, they don't go as far as like, here's the sequel, but they do leave it open to be like. I do think that it could be a franchise. It could be a franchise.
LSD Bear.
Yeah. I think so. Well, okay. Do you want to jump into our movies? Do the actual thing we're supposed to be here for? So we're talking about two movies, Personal Shopper and The Clouds of Sils Maria. Our first movie is Personal Shopper. We'll have a little musical interlude, and then Diane will break down the plot of Personal Shopper.
Hi. Our first Kristen Stewart movie tonight is called Personal Shopper. This is a film that she made between her Twilight films. And I guess after she made bank on the first one, it gave her the freedom to do some smaller indie kind of films. In this particular film, she plays Maureen, a personal shopper to a supermodel who is determined to stay in Paris 3 months after the death of her twin brother from a genetic heart abnormality, which she also has. Louis, her brother, was a medium and had promised her that he would contact her in the afterlife. She considers herself a medium as well, and has asked to search for his presence in the house that he and his girlfriend shared, and now the girlfriend is trying to sell. Anyway, unable to determine his presence, she starts to get text messages from an unknown source, and the movie goes on from there. Okay, the movie is the second movie she's done with director Olivier Assayas. And will you want to take it from there, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think this was after.
I kind of love this movie.
Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I kind of love this movie. I love the way that they did really short scenes and faded them to black. It kind of left a lot to the imagination within this movie. I think I went and watched some reaction videos and read some reviews, and there are so many different interpretations of this particular movie that you couldn't help but love that a little bit about it, because I think even the three of us would probably have a different opinion of what this movie was about and what happened in it. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think
Oh
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this was after her Twilight stint. Both of these were. And
Well, there were four movies in the Twilight
Mm.
series,
mhm.
and these movies were kind of in between the third and the fourth.
The last one was released in 2012, and then these were
Oh.
2014, 2016. So these were after. These were after.
They
This
were
is
all
start-
after.
They
Oh,
were
I
all
thought
after.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Mm.
Well, the
and
main thing is she had the money to do these.
yes, and I think that there was
Right.
both her and Robert Pattinson kind of that they were trying to break out of that sort of mold that people put them in.
Well, we can't all go with all of his choices.
Yeah, you know the same
did
guy
what?
who did the cinematography for this did High Life for both of these movies. He also shot High
Really?
Life.
Well, and you know who
Oh.
the other
hmm
person that was in the other actress that was in High Life.
Yes, yeah.
We'll
The,
talk about that.
Oh.
So
Miguel.
we watched High Life, and
Yeah, well, I wish I hadn't have.
it was one of the worst things we've seen. That's why
High Life is so fun to talk about with people, especially
Mhm.
if they haven't seen it too, because just describing that movie
Yeah,
is nuts.
it is. It's really nice.
Yeah.
um,
So, anyways, Luca, what'd you think about
all right.
this movie?
Okay. All right. So I don't have too much a relationship with Olivier Assayas.
hmm
Um, I saw parts of Irma Vep first
hmm
because some friends were telling me to watch Irma Vep. And I know that one is sort of like considered a classic a little bit. So I was like, okay, I'm into Irma Vep. I like the way that they're moving the camera. And I like the like metafictional, you know what I mean, movie within a movie kind of thing.
hmm
So then going into these two movies, I'm like, all right, Olivier Assayas, show me, who you are. And, I am into it. I'm definitely into it. Sometimes I have a hard time getting into like these quieter movies with like, less genre elements and more of like a, character study of like, desire and stuff like that. But Kristen Stewart is such a fascinating performer, and I just
Yeah.
couldn't take my eyes off of her the entire movie. Every like little thing that she's doing with her face and her body seems like so intentional but spontaneous. Like in the moment, she figures out how to think about her character in such a way that it's sort of like flowing along naturally. So I believed, she didn't have a false moment. I believed every second of her in both of these movies too, which back to back is, you might get a little blended, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that despite her style of acting being consistent and like her energy, I think in both is similar.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think she created a really distinct character in Personal Shopper, and I was
Yeah.
really fascinated by the character. Her relationship with her brother, who's not even there, permeates so much of the movie. And then the whole thing comes in with the phone and the person on the phone. And
Mhm.
I'm like, getting nervous for her. And I feel like there's some danger around the corner, especially
Yeah.
because I don't know if it's her brother or not. And I love the choice to keep all of that ambiguous up until the end. I mean, it would have been satisfying, but like a little bit cheap if, by the end of the movie they were like, I'm Lewis, or something like
Mhm.
that. I
I think the
did,
film repeatedly
yeah,
sort of shifts at
It
various
does.
points. Like there's hard shifts, and like here's a section of the movie that's this part, and then it's like, and now the plot goes into this way, and it's kind of this movie for a little bit.
Kind of shifts genre
Yeah.
in there
yeah,
too.
I guess
not
it's always a
just
thriller.
mix it shifts.
It's always
Yeah.
different types of thrillers, almost is the way that I look at it. And it's sort of exploring different subgenres of the thriller genre. I don't know. That's the way I looked at it.
I
I
loved the
think
supernatural elements in it as
Mhm.
well. They were integrated with the reality in such a seamless way. It all kind of felt like it could happen right now. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. The standout is her performance in this. I think that to me it was extraordinary. I really like her as a performer a lot.
Well, I think this director really works well with her style
Hmm.
because she has such a herky jerky, mumbling kind of, avoiding the camera, not avoiding the camera. She just has this manner about her in real life
Hmm.
that this director knows how to put on film in such a way that it makes it interesting,
Hmm. I think,
and,
yeah,
and
perhaps she was
different.
miscast in the Twilight thing, but if it allowed her to sort of get
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
momentum
I don't
to
know if
have
she
this
was
career.
miscast. I
Okay.
don't think she was necessarily
I don't
miscast.
know.
Played a high school teenager. I mean, I don't know. But
Yeah.
neither here nor
I'm,
there. I
yeah,
think this director gets her and knows
yeah,
how to take, I don't want to say take advantage, but let her use her strengths in the
absolutely.
best way. And
Well, these are
and the
written for
rumor
her.
has it, yeah,
These
rumor has it they've
characters.
got
Go ahead.
they're teaming up again.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I
She
think
did
Wait,
that.
do
in the
one
future they're gonna do
episode.
another one? They're gonna do another one in the future?
Yes, it was announced
Assayas
back in
and
November that they're working on something
ah,
together.
that's great. That's great. They make
Yeah.
such a
Mhm.
great pair.
And I think like he writes these pieces specifically for the actors that he casts. I think
Yeah.
that's sort of very fascinating, and I think you can tell that, like what you're saying, that he writes to her strengths and then later writes to
Yes.
the strengths of other
Yeah.
actors that we have in our next film. But yeah, this is really her. And everyone else is just sort of these side characters. They're very minor characters in this, but you spend a
Yeah.
lot of time with her. I also found it very interesting, having these as double features to sort of see where they differ in a lot of different ways. I mean, to have the same writer, director, and cinematographer is the same between these two things, but to be so visually different from each other is also very fascinating, and have a different sort of tone. Of course, is interesting how people can, of course, do different things with
Yeah.
different projects.
And
I always
there
watch
was one actor that was in both of these as well, and was also in the series that you watched, Luca. That's Lars Eldinger. Eldinger. Yeah,
Yes.
he
Yes.
must be his go-to guy.
Mm.
Yeah,
He
for
really
like
must be.
playing like, I don't know, the character with some authority who pops up like, halfway in
Yeah.
and, talks to the main character and kind of goes like, here's what you need to do.
Did you
I
notice that
loved
was the same guy in these movies, or did you see that afterwards?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I
no, when
didn't. I had no idea that was the same dude.
No,
Didn't
I
okay,
know.
so I watched Clouds first, and
Mhm,
then, and I was like, "Oh, this director guy, I totally believe him as, like
mhm,
they keep calling him like the Klaus." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that guy
yeah.
seems like the Klaus." And then in Personal Shopper, I was like, "Oh my God, it's the Klaus. He's playing a different character now." You
I
know?
saw him
I,
the other way, in
oh
Personal
really?
Shopper
Okay.
first, and I did not recognize him as the Klaus. Later on, or
I want
whatever his
so
character was, Ingo.
So I want to ask you about that though, because I feel like the order that I watched it in really informed like how I sort of viewed the movies and how I felt about them. Did watching Personal Shopper first and then Clouds kind of maybe affect how you felt about it in the end? Both of them?
I don't
See,
know.
I
What do you
thought,
think,
see,
Kate?
I had thought about switching them last minute because Clouds was made first, and that it sort of seemed like that was perhaps the better way. And then just the way that I watched Clouds, or it was, let's talk to Luca earlier, watched that earlier in the day, and then watched Personal Shopper at night, which I thought did help with the sort of vibes of the of both the films. I do think that it was interesting to sort of see how she worked with him and Clouds, and then this film was written to her strengths from that experience that he had with Kristen Stewart and Clouds. I do think that you can sort of see that. Outside of that, they are very different films that I do think that they can sort of be seen in isolation from each other. But it was from one's, I think, a very much a nighttime movie. I do think that benefits from seeing Personal Shopper in the middle of the night. I do think that helps because it is such a viscerally nighttime
Yeah.
film.
It is,
Also,
and
Mm.
you start off thinking you're about to watch a movie about ghosts, and mediums and spiritualism. And when he brings in the Fox sisters, that really triggered, for me, the Fox sisters were not only the one of the originators of the spiritualism movement, they were also the first ones to say, we're fakes.
Mm.
So it was kind of,
Mm.
I thought that was interesting that he said that he's telling the audience, because he uses the Fox sisters instead of all the other people that were part of the spiritualism movement, he uses them to kind of inform the viewer that what you're watching here is not necessarily real. Does that make sense?
Just complicated even more. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you have the ambiguity of it, but then that little detail unlocks that. That's so cool.
Yeah. I thought it did. To me, it was like this is what she's experiencing. No one around her is experiencing the same thing she is. And I don't know if it's because she's really a medium or if this is something she's projecting for herself and how she's dealing with her grief.
And what do you think about one of the interesting ways that he tells these films, in both of them this way and then this one in particular, of how information is given to you, of like you sort of get you're dropped right in the middle of things where then you have to pick up like why is she, you don't know exactly why she's at this house until later, and then the whole heart thing that she has the same thing as her brother, like all of that is sort of given into later, and then you're able to sort of understand what happened earlier because the information's later introduced. I don't know. Does that, you guys find that interesting? Would that be how you would tell that story? I do find that it's kind of a fascinating way of going about that.
It kind of drove me crazy when he shorted the scenes. You know, he gave you a little bit of information. He dropped the scene, went to black, and went to the next scene, and
And
that
he loves
was,
that. He loves that fade down. He loves to do that.
Yes.
That's why I agree with you guys. I think the film is viewed better at night because of that. Yeah.
I like the fades more in this than I do the other Clouds. I think like it seems like it makes a little bit more sense in this movie when it sort of fades to black and everything. Yeah,
I disagree, but I'll debate you when we get to Clouds. I'll debate you.
Yeah.
I loved the fades in that, you know? I really think he's a good writer, though. Like, I was just really struck by the dialogue and how efficiently he's able to get exposition out in a way where it feels like you're with the character. You're not like looking at them through a terrarium. You know what I mean? So much of this movie is played on a text message screen, and that's what I wanted to actually ask you guys about. That's what I wanted to ask y'all about, but because sometimes there's been criticism about movies like that, where it's like, is looking at a phone screen cinematic, or how do you dramatize, getting a text message? And of course, you have stuff from this year, even like Decision to Leave, where they're putting the camera inside of the phone and you're looking out from it, and all these crazy shots, right, that you could do. So Assayas chooses in 2017 or 16, 14?
2016.
Yeah. So in 2016, he chooses to just have it sort of be this high angle looking down on a phone screen, right? And then the text messages pop up. And so I was kind of thinking to myself, like, this could be so boring, but it's not. It's so tense. And I think like the mystery of the unknown, text messenger really helps that become cinematic,
It's fascinating because you're right, because there's been examples of they'll pop the text, of course, on screen, like it's like on, like you see it pop up, and it's like mostly the people's reaction or whatever. But there is a lot of close-ups of her hand texting,
and her reaction is in her text, not her face.
Yeah.
Which
and,
there's so much of that.
Stretches.
It almost becomes like having a narrator. Those texts were like, this is a narrator. He's walking us through narration at this point.
And how she almost becomes like, at first she's trying to shut it down, and then then she becomes obsessed with it herself, and she's like in the middle of task, like, hey, hold up, let me see what this new thing is. I found that very interesting. How he does technology in general is interesting. It's kind of different, like, when he does like these FaceTime calls, different sort of things of that.
Yeah, so much of Clouds too is like, oh, I'm getting a call.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I have to put you on hold. I'm getting another call. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, it's and to sort of see that, where like I think a lot of directors who are, he's been around for quite some time, that they will essentially they'll make movies that's not even really part of it, or they just do phone calls. You have modern day movies where people still are just taking phone calls and not texting with each other, or whatever the case is, because typically these filmmakers are from that sort of time period in which that was just how that is, or they don't even think about how text messaging could affect the plot and everything. And to sort of see him integrate that in an interesting way. I did have a note. I always point out some things that bothered me. This was something that's such a small, nitpicky thing, but it became a thing that I could not get out of my head. The fact that she would do, because she asks a lot of questions in this text message, a lot of questions. The fact that she would do a space and then a question mark bothered me so much. And she did that 9 times in this movie. 9 times she went, who are you? Space question mark. What are you? Why are you texting me? Space question mark. I do not know why, and that bothered me.
This movie is unwatchable. They need to pay for their crimes against humanity.
I don't know. It was a choice because like he didn't. The guy she was texting or whoever didn't do that, and so his was normal, and then his started switching to have these space question marks. So then I'm like, is he making fun of her with this, or what's happening with this space question mark situation? But even one word answers, sometimes she would have a space, like she would do yes space and then send it with the space afterwards, or like it was odd. It that became a weird thing that I focused in on. That was quite obviously her doing the text.
This is where we get generational, Luca, because I didn't even freaking notice
it. Yeah.
I mean,
it's also a punctuation thing of like, I don't know. I have to write for a living, so I notice these things.
I wanted to ask you, ask you, Cade, what you thought about, when she finds the dead supermodel.
Yes.
Right. And she starts to run down the hall because she hears a noise.
Yeah.
And you look back, and the scene you're given is the door that's half closed with the lighting behind it. Like almost supernatural in the sense that there's some supernatural element to this. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that particular shot and how it related back to this conversation that she had with Ingo, or however you say his name, the boyfriend that killed the supermodel? How she had that conversation with him when she first met him, and then she talked about being a medium and how the door is half open, and it was like this beautiful moment where he actually, does a complete 360 on himself in his writing. I thought that was beautiful. I thought, Cade, Cade loved this part.
Yeah. No, yeah. It sounds like you loved it, Diane, so I'm glad that
I did love it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is a Cade
sounds like not
moment.
So much a question as much as it is that you loved it. Yeah, no, I love, yeah.
You know how we have those Juicy Lucy's when we play trivia? Well, this was like a Cade moment to me.
Yeah, I agree that the writing in particular, I one of the notes I had was the fact that these are dialogue heavy scenes that he writes from like a script making, and how he then takes that to direction is very, very fascinating from someone who also I write a lot of dialogue heavy things. And so how he adapts his work into then how he blocks it and everything became a thing that I was very interested in the sort of minutia of how this can be on paper. This is pages of dialogue, just people talking back and forth to each other. Particularly, we'll talk about that more in Clouds, but in this one too, it's kind of a both of them note that how he is able to then like take that and then visually make it where now here's people standing and they're moving, like it and makes it somewhat interesting, but while still focusing on the characters and everything. That is a fascinating sort of thing that people who are screenwriters and directors have to consciously figure out and everything. And it's different for other directors of like they're just much more action focused or whatever, but it was fascinating seeing someone who was a a dialogue person who put a lot of emphasis on people just talking in rooms. How he shot that and how he staged the actors in a dynamic way was very, very just fascinating teaching moment to learn and see how someone can do that.
In that scene, I thought she was way oversharing with him. Like she just met this guy in here. She's done, oh, I'm a medium.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is how I see things. Yeah.
But this is also the scene that colors the whole thing. Like that's where you get all the information. You need that. Yeah.
This is actually the most informative scene in the movie in reality.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you that then back around because this is the guy who's texting her.
Yeah.
He's the one who's trying to set her up as the murderer.
But also, you kind of know that being that there's not very many other people she's ever interacted with in this movie. It's a very small amount of people.
Well,
so
at the beginning, you wonder, you think that he's giving you the impression that she might be having this conversation with Lewis or with herself,
It's a film about sort of wanting to sort of see things and like what, and how grief sort of does that and how you're wanting to, but a logical person tries to, well, maybe not, but it, I don't know. And I found that to be a very powerful story of, because it's also slightly about, it deals with, is there a afterlife and her dealing with sort of that as well. And is that, and because this was almost like a way for the other person who passed away to be a sign that there is that, that there's a lot of different things at play that was, I found to be very interesting.
To me, I think this movie is about loneliness.
Yeah.
And trying to make a connection with somebody that's already gone. She's already been on this journey for 90 something days by the time we meet her. And she's struggling, with the fact that he's not in her life anymore. Mm-hmm.
And I do think. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to cough.
Okay. I think that one of the fascinating parts in both of these films is how he sort of talks about these weighty issues in comparison to sort of the vapidness of our modern society, and how, like in this case, she's this personal shopper for this very famous supermodel and everything, and how she's dealing with grief and loss and the afterlife and loneliness and all in a city that she's not familiar with, and what's the rest of her life going to be? Is this going to be just a part of, like, what is she going to do with the rest of it, while she's spending the day just going around picking up clothes for somebody else and everything.
That absolutely has the kind of job that is so frivolous and without meaning or depth in any way, shape, or form. When she's struggling with all these other really weighty issues, I thought was great.
And there's a line views. I have that it was the only line I wrote down, but I just absolutely loved it. And it's when she's on the phone with her boyfriend who's over in Oman, which sure wish I knew where that was at on the map, right, Diane? Wish I knew that was right next. We missed a trip.
It's right next to Yemen, in case you wondered.
God, I missed a trivia. I knew that.
Shut up. Shut up. Just leave it.
They didn't believe me. Anyways, trivia stuff. There was a quote that she said, and she said, "I spend my days doing bullshit that doesn't interest me and keeps me from what does. It's driving me fucking crazy." I just thought that was so profound thing for a lot of, I think, young people in general. And
trust me, it's for old people.
Yes, I think so. I think in general.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I spent the afternoon looking for my mother's lower plate of her false teeth. Do you think I really wanted to do that? No. It's not just a young thing because you're a young dude. This goes your entire life. Ava can back me up on that one.
No, you're right, but I thought that was such a sort of profound thing that, like, because it's talking about sort of the workplace in her case. Any other notes you have?
Let me just tell you something. The Hallmark movie, Personal Shoppers, never grungy. Their hair's always washed and they wear makeup. Just so you know.
Diane loves her Hallmark movie.
I kind of love the fact that he gave her this job as a personal shopper for a supermodel, and then had her just like completely the opposite. It was like
Mhm.
Kurt Cobain is a personal shopper for,
Mhm.
I don't know, one of the, big time supermodels.
She
Yeah.
looked rough in this movie.
Boy, she
And
did.
by the end, you were like, "Oh my God, she looked like death."
Yeah,
You know?
Oh,
she did.
I thought she looked fabulous in this movie.
Of course she did.
I
You can
mean,
only think of one scene. We know, Ted. But
No,
I do
that's not
love
what
the
those.
fact that she stepped into the light at the end. She
you
realized
know,
this was her, not
right,
Lewis. This was her.
right.
She was doing
Mhm.
this. And so I
Yeah.
love that at the end where they
Mhm.
fade to white. Give her some
Yeah,
light
I
Oh.
like
clothes
that
to
too.
wear.
Yeah.
She looked beautiful.
A
Mhm.
surprisingly sweet ending for a movie like this, which is so tense and
Yeah.
filled with dread, you know?
Is it a sweet sort of? I think that the
I
ending's
thought
interesting because it's
I
like
really thought it
where
was.
because so
Yeah, it's
the
like
knock.
it's I thought it was hopeful.
Yeah, the knock, yeah.
Well, so the knock happens. She asks, "Is this are who are you? Who are you? Is this Lewis?" Long
Thunk.
pause, or am I alone, or whatever, or is it just
Or is
me?
it me?
Is
Is
it
it
just
just
me?
me?
Is
Yeah.
it just me?
And then that's when the knock happens, and then
Thunk.
fade to white. Which I don't.
Yeah.
That I mean, that's is the answer to the Lewis thing, or is it the that's it? Is it just I don't know.
See, this is where
That's what
everybody can have their own interpretation.
Yes.
that's what's so beautiful about it, is
Mm-hmm.
that you can hear with your own two ears that the knock is happening. So you're like, on
Mm-hmm.
some level of reality, I'm getting the knock.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, he's writing it in such a way that it's contradicting itself on purpose, you know? And
Yes.
I thought, like, the beautiful thing about that was that it doesn't matter whatever it is, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what it was. If even if it was like a bird ran into the window on accident or something like that,
17
she's
times in a row.
yeah, yeah, exactly. On cue. On cue. You know,
Yeah.
she's like
Mhm.
having this moment of like personal catharsis and like acceptance um you know,
That he's gone.
she's waiting the entire movie to basically hear this, right?
Mhm.
And then once she hears it, she asks the question, "Is it me?" And she
Mhm.
gets an answer back basically saying, "Yeah." She, like,
Mhm.
you
It was
know,
always you.
that
Yeah.
told me,
Mhm.
yeah, that told me everything I needed to know about, like, you know, you're not quite waiting for Lewis, you're waiting for yourself to
Mhm.
understand, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Understand, to accept what is, you know?
Well,
Mhm.
because she's repeatedly seeing signs at various points, and she's almost not even accepting those. Like it's going to need to be more than that, or whatever. Like it's her sort of saying that, like, and then now she's given the most sort of big sign, and then she's still sort of wanting more from it or whatever. That's also very fascinating because she's
Right.
not
I
willing to let
also
go. I think it's also that's that part
But see,
too.
I think, Luca, I
yeah.
kind of agree with you on this because I think that last knock, which by the way is part of the whole Fox sisters deal as well, the knocks were fake.
Oh.
They were doing them themselves.
Was
So
that the table
to
going dum, dum,
yeah,
dum?
Mhm.
Okay,
they were
okay, yeah,
doing
yeah,
it themselves. Anyway,
yeah.
I think from it was her way of saying, I'm letting go now. I'm
Mhm.
going to
Mhm.
live my life. I'm going to stop searching for Lewis. It was always about me, not him.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Fade to white.
Or you know,
Every,
maybe it's saying like you know, when you experience like grief and the loss of a very close loved one, sometimes I know, like, in my family, we find like little signs and these little like inconsistencies in reality, and all of us kind of go like, "Hey, I found this thing. Oh, I found the same thing like the other week or whatever." You know, is that a sign from Gung Gung or something like that, right? But I think the point of maybe the ending of the movie is that it's not that like you have to stop looking for them. It's maybe understand that like they'll always be within. You know what I mean? Like you are now Lewis. Like it's all within yourself, right? And
Absolutely.
remember that scene in the garden when she's sitting with the boyfriend of her, you know, that like trio. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And he just starts. Oh, he just goes in and he starts like telling her messages from beyond and stuff. Like, she clearly doesn't want to talk about it. She's like, hey man, I don't know you too well. Yeah, okay, my brother died. But he's just going off, and he's like telling her what she needs to hear, but not what she was able to hear at the time. You know what I mean? She's like blowing him off a little bit, right? Um, and there was some key. She goes like, he goes, do you think that Lewis is here right now? She's like, no. And he's like, well, I can tell you that he is right now, right? And of course, you have the bit with the floating glass, and then it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that can't be, explained by empiric reality. But I think the sentiment of that scene, though, is true. Where it's like, I can look around and see people that I've lost in anything. You know what I mean? Because you feel like they're there in a metaphorical sense. You know what I mean? What I love about this movie is that it added the supernatural element to that human experience that we all kind of feel sometimes. Like, I feel like somebody that's not here, their presence is here. And, he's just adding the supernatural element to that, and he's moving glasses around. I like how simple the special effects were. They're not going too crazy with the ghost makeup or whatever. I will say, I was nervous in that one scene when she actually has the interaction with the spirit, and I think the spirit almost vomits something, if I'm remembering.
Ectoplasm. She calls it ectoplasm in the.
Oh, okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was such a well done scene too.
Yeah. They keep it quiet. There's no or whatever. Which I think is very in keeping with his sensibility, and it also helps it blend with the more mundane reality stuff. You cut back to her doing the personal shopping, and I'm like, oh yeah, this movie's fucking called Personal Shopper. I forgot about that. Because we've been in paranormal activity land for a little while,
Yeah.
And then it would just go from that scene to her going yeah, I'm a medium and I can communicate. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that side of you as well. So I love I don't know. I love how all the disparate elements, whether it be the more supernatural genre type stuff, or the mundane, more like Clouds of Sils Maria type thing, where it's just a character and a drama and a setting. I love how easily those two things melded in this movie, and you'd think it might be difficult, but they really made it feel all in the same level of reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was I think just a beautifully shot film. I thought it was I agree. There was a lot of elements to it that I really enjoyed. I do think at times it was a little slow paced. I do think that if I was to sort of say anything about it, it was a little dry at moments. I think it could have moved at a slighter pace that would have, I think, at times I was a little bit bored. That's my biggest sort of nitpick towards it, is that it didn't move it could be slightly brisker, and I think it would have been perfect.
Maybe you're not taking your date to go see Personal Shopper, but it's definitely for the intellectual crowd. It's definitely for the artsy crowd. It's definitely super French. Both of these movies are super French.
Yes.
And so, I would say if you're the kind of person who likes movies that have amazing high-end fashion in them, and also melancholy characters, being lonely, and then also movies about loss and characters following their inner desires and exploring the parts of themselves that they would rather not normally look in. I'd say that this movie's for you. But you definitely have to get used to the pacing. You definitely have to get used to the style of dialogue and Kristen Stewart's acting. And she's like, oh my God, when she starts stuttering, she goes for it. When she towards the end of the movie, when she starts getting freaked out by a lot of the stuff, she's like, I, she's going for it.
That
you
the
know?
scene with the police at the police station. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly, you
Yeah.
know?
that'd be
Um,
exactly what she would be like if she got picked up for a DUI
yeah,
in real
yeah,
life.
Yeah.
you
There.
know,
The one
but
thing about it is that it's very realistic.
Did you leave the jewelry
yeah.
there? I wasn't thinking about the the jewelry at the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh
really.
Yeah.
my God, that was so tense. That was so
Mm-hmm.
tense. Um,
But the
because,
fact
you
that
know,
she
you
keeps going into
know,
these big like fashion houses, she's at Cartier getting this expensive jewelry and everything, and
yeah.
yeah, and that's just so mundane for her because I mean she's dealing with a lot more weightier things, and here these are she's having to go in that and have blank checks for these houses and all that. I don't know, and then that she's so close to these like this other like the model but yet so far away like she's seeing her on like she's looking her up to sort of see what she's up to, and then she has essentially just one scene with her and the lady won't even talk to her because she has this other
Yeah,
thing
doesn't
going
even
on.
look at her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that
But
elephant
yet she
the
knows
elephant.
not only what
Yeah.
size she is and what she would wear, what
Yeah.
her style was, et cetera, et cetera. And she obviously has not worked for her that long.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
she's, that I don't know. That's the part that was a little bit unbelievable for me.
Well, she was supposed to,
but
yeah. I mean, that was part of her job was to sort of know all that about her, I guess. Or she
I
wouldn't
will
have been.
say she was good at her job. She
Yeah.
was very good at her job.
Yeah.
Her
we
multiple
never
jobs,
really
actually.
saw. We really never saw the model wear anything though that she picked out. Did you?
She
Notice
wore
that?
the dress, right? In that, like, there was that photo she was looking up, and she was wearing the dress, right? That she had picked up earlier in one of
yeah.
the photos she was looking up of where she was at. That's what I
And then
understood.
wasn't she wearing one of the main dresses like when she was murdered, like on the floor? I recalled like it being she was wearing like some sort of piece of high fashion. I will say the sound design in this movie was very intense, and I noticed some like really subtle things that I wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't wearing headphones while watching it. There are times in the background of the mix they'll take the room tone and they'll almost just like the hiss of the sound, and they'll like reverse it, or they'll put it in like through a filter, and it'll sound like a little bit of a ghostly voice just in the background of a scene. Not even in a scene where there was like, say, a ghost in it, but they keep the feeling and the presence of something else like throughout, and I think that helps the entire movie kind of like hold up. You know what I mean? And then another thing, that one of the main dresses in the movie, it's that sequiny, clangly dress or whatever.
It's in the
It's got all
poster, I
the
think.
bits
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's got all those bits and pieces to it. That dress is like crunchy. Like that is the loudest dress I've ever heard in a movie. Like,
She's
so
having to
whoever,
sit down while putting on her shoes, and I'm like, yeah, that's got to be a
yeah,
very uncomfortable dress.
I don't know if that was recorded like live on set, or if a Foley artist came in and did that, but like the texture of that dress was so well realized that I was like uncomfortable hearing her wear it.
Absolutely. So, Diane, if you have anything else, but would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
Yes, I would definitely recommend this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to figure out, while listening to Luca talk, what icon to give it, and I can't come up with anything because I know you'll take the ghost.
Oh, fine. Do you want the ghost, Diane?
No, that's okay. So, the one thing that I made a note, this is the kind of stuff that, the space between the end of the sentence and the question mark that was driving you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What was driving me crazy is every time she bought a drink or got a drink or she opened it, she never drank it. She just, the
espresso that she got, that she sat there and she got the dick and she didn't drink it. Yeah, I remember that too. That she got it and she set it down.
She buys the drink and then they announce it's time to go, and it's like she never finishes a drink. So
I don't even think she drank the one espresso. Like she went through this whole process of getting it and then just sits it down and leaves it at a table. Yeah.
Yeah, just leaves it. So I was trying to figure out from the drinks which one I would go with, and if I had an espresso, I would do that.
Mm-hmm. I guess you could do it in the little coffee cup. I guess you could do that.
Yeah, the coffee cup would be fine. Because I really related to that, because I do that all the time too. Making, And then
Make it and then
that's why
let it sit.
this is why I have 3 right now.
Yo. You got to get
Because
another one going. You got to
yeah,
pump those numbers up.
I know. Isn't that something? Okay. So yeah.
So
So I would
one
give her a coffee cup.
cool. There you are.
Yeah.
There's
And
your
I would
coffee cup.
recommend this movie. I didn't see it. I mean, maybe it did drag some. I don't know. I never lost interest in it.
Mhm.
So I was able to watch it straight through and not pick up an iPad or my phone or text somebody.
Well, good. Yes.
Yeah.
And Luca, would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
Okay. I would recommend this movie,
Mhm.
but I think you should really know what you're going into, because I feel like this movie isn't maybe like a big, like huge crowd pleaser. It's
Mhm.
definitely something that you have to intellectually engage in, and I think it's something that you definitely have to like feel as like a whole piece. Like at the end of the movie, you sort of take it as one thing instead of all the individual bits of it. Um, I think you should watch this movie if you um, like incredibly attractive people who just look like super messed up,
Yeah.
and and I also think that the camera work in this movie was really really interesting, because they do this European style of camera work, and I say European because I notice it in the movies of Luca Guadagnino as well. I don't know if these two filmmakers are friends or contemporaries, but I feel like there's a lot of connective tissue between something like Suspiria and something like this movie. Um, they do this European style of camera work where you can almost sort of like see the camera operator. You see like the hand of the artist as it's moving around. It's always like a little jangly when it moves. Like you can see a little bit of
Mhm.
camera shake. And they loosen up the tripod, and then they loosen up the dolly. And so it allows room for like these little shakes and imperfections. And I
Mhm.
feel like it really adds to something like this movie in particular, because this movie is all about the physical world and the immaterial world. And so when you see the hand of the filmmaker in this film, it really adds to like the whole subtext of the movie. People from beyond the reality affecting the reality of the movie. I definitely would recommend it. I think you got to be in the mood. Got to be one of those nights where you want to be in this kind of vibe. But I would give it what are we doing, like out of 5?
If you want to, whatever you want to give it.
Oh, okay. Like then I'll just go like straight up out of 100. I'll do this is a rock solid like 75. And that's
Gotcha.
based on personal taste. I know a lot of people who would like this way more than me. So this is for you.
Mhm.
I'd do a
Metacritic,
70.
let's see,
So
Metacritic gave it a 79, so
Yeah.
you're really close.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. And I guess I'm not doing an emoji. I'm just doing straight up numbers.
It's a good idea.
That's fun. Yeah. So we always try to do that. I had a backup one, Diane, in case you took Ghost or whatever. But the no,
I know how you feel about sheets and ghosts and
yes.
ghosts that, yes, yes.
I like this movie a lot. I did think it was I did think it dragged at times. I'll be the lone person out on that field there. I am, but I did really think you have to be in the right mood. It is one of those movies that it's very much it has to hit you at the right time and everything. And I do think that it's a very beautifully shot movie, and I do think that the standout is Kristen Stewart in that performance. The performance is extraordinary, and you can't take your eyes off of the screen when she's on there. That it is extraordinary, that performance. I gave it here. I guess I'll just give it a ghost. Jeez, there. Give it a ghost. Ghost emoji. That's what it is. I also had a heart emoji as an option, an actual physical heart. the organ.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's a
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I thought I would recommend it, but you have to be in the right mood. It's a slower, methodically paced film. But if you love great performances and you kind of you like what we said, then I think that's a great watch.
Hey, before the moment passes on Personal Shopper, I wanted
Mhm.
to ask y'all. This movie is sort of like playing with a bunch of different tones and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Did y'all find it legit like horror movie scary at certain times? Or do you feel like it maybe fell short of like what it was trying to do? I thought it was spooky, but I don't know about scary.
Yeah, I don't know if it was ever. I mean, I don't know if the intention was to be scary. I mean, there were. I think when she was walking through the house at times, like I mean, it had like a creepy sort of thing, but
Mm.
I don't know. It was a vibe more than it was a. I don't know. I thought the vibe was cool and creepy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I
Like
don't
the
think I was
feeling of
like
it.
I gotta hide my eyes or whatever. That's the way I got it. I did have the
Yeah.
only other note I had here was for this Parisian supermodel. Boy, was her apartments just ugly. I thought they were just atrociously ugly. I'm always someone who loves interior things and all that, and I look at that and I'm like, geez, that's nothing there. Nothing really of that even grab onto. Just very
It's like
basic.
flat surfaces and
Yeah.
concrete ceilings and,
Yeah.
ugh,
Class.
yeah.
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 Very
Well,
modernistic.
yeah,
Yeah.
but not even like in a. I don't know. It had some
And
other
not in a
things.
good way.
Not in a good
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
And that stuff was like super expensive too,
Yeah.
like that's
I did read somewhere
million.
that Chanel provided a lot of the clothing for free, and helped with the finances of both these films.
Oh
Mm,
wow,
So yeah,
that's cool.
there she
yeah.
uh, what is it? Kristen Stewart is one of their um, I don't know, influencers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
There's a
always
word
dress
for
her
it.
for. Well, yeah, they always dress her for every
Mhm.
award show, that kind of thing. So she's kind
Yeah.
of one of their spokesmodels.
Mm-hmm. Well, great.
It's funny to make a movie like this that's maybe a little bit of a critique of materialism, but then have
Mhm.
Chanel like co-finance the movie. That's
Yeah.
that's a little funny. That's
That is
nice.
Yeah.
that is
That's
Yeah.
funny.
nice.
Well, they got to showcase some of their pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, great. Our next film is Clouds of Sils Maria, which was the film that the director made before this film, and it was where they first met Kristen Stewart and the director Olivier Assayas or whatever we keep saying. Yeah. Anyways,
Assayas, yeah,
Assayas. Yeah.
Assayas,
So yes.
Olivier Assayas. Yeah,
Great.
I listened
Halfway
many
through what
times.
we're gonna get.
Yeah, I keep saying Oliver, and now I'm finding out that it's Olivier.
It's
Olivier.
You know?
Olivier.
Olivier
Yeah.
Assayas. Okay. Clouds of Sils Maria. After this, grab some popcorn from the concession stand during this intermission.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
Hello. Now we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you the plot synopsis of Clouds of Sils Maria from 2014. There we go. The Juliette Binoche plays a veteran French actress named Maria Enders, whose career started out in a stage play where she plays a young woman who dates an older woman only to dump her. She also played the same character in the movie adaptation, which launched her long international film career. Recently, she also played a villain in a superhero movie, but now wants to return to her roots. 20 years later, and after the tragic death of the playwright who wrote the play that started her career, she is asked to play the older woman in the new adaptation of the play, which she very hesitantly agrees to. Her assistant is a young American played by Kristen Stewart. She helps her practice her lines and repeatedly reassures her that this is the right move for her artistry. The younger actress who takes on Maria's old role is played by Chloe Grace Moretz. She's a typical young and talented Hollywood actress who is swallowed up by tabloid frenzy and drama. The film is told in 3 distinct acts with title cards. Part 1 is about the death of the playwright and accepting the role in the revival. Part 2, which is the longest section, focuses on Juliet and Kristen's characters, their relationships, as they practice lines for the play. And the epilogue is set right before the play opens in London. So that is the basic rundown of this film. Everyone. Oh, Diane, she has to deal with the dogs at the times. What did you guys think about this film? We'll start with you, Luca.
Great picture. Loved it. Good movie.
And you said you liked it. I mean, I think in reference, I guess we'll go down the line. Which one did you like better? Did you like this one or Personal Shopper more?
Okay, although I was positive on Personal Shopper, I much preferred Clouds over Personal Shopper. I was invested into this, you know?
I agree. And Diane, which one did you prefer of the two?
I with Luca on this.
Okay,
one. I
so we're all
preferred
agree.
Clouds.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
just the cinematography of these mountains.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh! And what was the snake called? I'm
The
so
Maloya.
glad.
Yeah.
Maloya.
Aren't you glad you got to see that?
Yeah.
Both with black and white and at the end.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So if people didn't watch the movie, there's these hills that are in Sils Maria.
Hills.
And
This is the Alps.
the Alps.
The Alps.
These mountains. And there is these clouds when they filter through, they snake through the valley. And that's what the snake, so the original play that she was in was named after this snake that supposedly weaves through there. That's what they called it. And also the movie is named after these same clouds.
Yes.
Oh yeah, should we sort of talk like the viewers haven't seen it or they have?
we that's a great question, Luca, that we change back and forth. Both.
Yeah.
We
It's a
give
good
the
question for
rundown.
halfway through the podcast.
Our boss
Yeah.
doesn't limit us. Our boss is,
Okay, yeah.
whatever we
Sometimes I decide to clue the viewers in, sometimes I don't. Thank you for calling that out. Sometimes
No, I'm
We don't
I'm
even bother
wondering,
with
yeah.
saying spoiler alert anymore.
yeah.
Oh, Ava loved it too. I thought she would.
Ava.
I thought she would, yeah.
Because the
Yes.
drama in this one, just the situations and the dynamics between the characters was so riveting and the writing was so good that it's almost
yeah.
like, you didn't need the supernatural element of Personal Shopper. You didn't need any of the fluff. You have these characters and the setting, and it just says everything that you need to say, And
Did you-
just them hiking and shit, you know what I mean? Like,
Did you not love the opening sequence
On the
of
train.
this
train?
on the train where they're moving and she's talking, on the phone, but it's a constant motion and so
Yeah.
like the guy who did The West Wing.
Aaron Sorkin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The walk and
So
talk is
like
what you're saying?
that.
Like, yeah.
The walk and talking kind of, I just love that. The whole, and the train, so many times when you see scenes that are filmed on a train, the train, is moving, but you'd never know it from the people who are standing there. This one you could tell. This train was moving. She was moving. It was like, she's really on a train.
Yes.
I love
Literally
that
the
opening.
first thought that I had when this movie started was like, did they fake that train? Because that looks so real, Did they actually just ride on a train through the Alps and shoot that, I love like the blocking in this movie especially. For so much of it that just takes place between two characters and dialogue, they found a way to really keep you cinematically interested in your eyes like
Exactly.
interested in the frames. I noticed that something that they do a lot is they block them to move between interior and exterior in the same scene.
Yes.
And oftentimes a scene will end with like a switch. Like if they've been inside for the whole scene, someone will walk outside. And the camera likes to reframe that. So you often have like multiple like compositions in the same shot. And especially for the dialogue stuff, that is important,
Yes.
Keep the audience, keep the like eyes of the camera as the eyes of the audience, because
What's fascinating is this film almost feels like a which plays, I think, into it a lot. It almost feels like a film adaptation of a play, of just the fact that there are they're in these locations that are like it has a structure, like an act structure, and then it has like with an epilogue and everything, and then but it's like two people in a place just talking, but they've adapted it seemingly, because obviously the script was just two people, oftentimes, or maybe it's a third person or whatever, talking in these locations. But you're right, the blocking was so dynamic and interesting that you kind of forget that at times, that it is just a pages long scene of just two people having a conversation. It's very dynamic and everything. And
I wanted to tell you all about this like very sort of strange experience that I had watching this movie, because I feel like so the way that it was written, right? It's these well, okay, there's multiple levels of reality, you know? So you're watching a movie and you've got Kristen Stewart and Juliette Binoche, and you know them as actors, but you have to see them as the character, right?
Mhm.
So then the movie's going along, and, you know, I start to lose the Kristen Stewart and the Juliette Binoche, and I just see the characters, right? And then the characters start playing characters in their own play.
Yes.
So then I'm like, you know, they'll do something extremely purposeful with the editing, and they'll drop you into a scene in the middle of them rehearsing for the play. And I feel like it wasn't written. I could just tell from how spot on it was that it wasn't written with the like as if the play were written in the past in the movie, and then now they're, you know, reading it, and oh, haha, it kind of corresponds to our current situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like that at all. In fact, despite what the movie may tell you, it felt like the play was being written about their present at that moment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so it adds it's this little level of like I don't know what's reality anymore, you know, because this
Well, and
play
I
is
think
It's
literally what you're going
fascinating
through.
I think
because
he does that to you for moments,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
For a few moments here and there, and then he throws in Christian as part of her lines,
Mhm.
the actual direction notes to
Yes.
keep
Yeah.
to put you right back into we're rehearsing lines.
Mhm.
We're not
Right.
having this conversation between the two of us, and I kind of love that, because it's a little bit jarring at 1st
Mhm.
time, and then you get to where you go, okay, I'm going to get this direction note, and it's not going to be about the two of them.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's fascinating because neither one of them really wants to be the character that they're playing, like, or they don't want to be perceived in the way that the character that they're playing is perceived, and that's where sort of the tension comes from, and it's great.
And the strange effect that I got from whenever they would remind you that like it, you know, they were rehearsing or whatever, they would pull you out. The effect was that because the characters are playing characters, when they jump out of doing the play, you see them as the quote unquote real people. And
Yeah.
so the fact that there's like multiple movies within movies or plays within plays or whatever adds to, you know, ooh, I get an opportunity to use the word verisimilitude. That's such a great word. But the fact that they're acting as actors in the acting thing makes the reality of the movie even more concrete. And you don't see Kristen Stewart, you forget about Juliette Binoche, you don't know them as actors anymore, you just think that they're like the real people, you know?
Yeah.
It was such a fascinating device, and I don't think I've seen a movie that quite like pulled it off in that way, where I almost forgot that I was watching actors in a film. I'm like, oh yeah, these people are like real now, you know?
Yeah.
It was great.
I must say, if I was comparing, I think the heart of the film is, of course, the part two. That is the strength. That is where, and it's at its when it's at its simplest. It's literally just these two characters, and I think that is whenever it sort of soars the most, is when it's just Kristen Stewart and Juliette Binoche. Those two on screen together is excellent. I thought the first act was very much just sort of setting up plot. I thought, and I found that to be a little bit boring, but once we got to the meat of it, it was brilliant. And I even liked the epilogue quite a bit too, but I thought the second part was really when it was squarely on these two people and their performances. It's extraordinary. that's what I'm drawn to in films in general is these performances from actors.
How do y'all feel about when movies have like fake movies within the movie, or like fake plays within the play?
Love it
Like
every single time.
yeah.
Never
kinda
once
like
have I disliked it. It is
Yeah.
a problem of mine that you can be a bad movie, and if it's a movie within a movie, I'm like 100% on board with it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because you kind
Yeah,
of love
yeah.
to have that feeling that you are behind the scenes,
Yeah.
right? You're behind the scenes with these guys who are trying to get their art,
I just love
on-
just
on
meta
screen.
sort of readings of the and
Yeah.
I do love that and the fact that I love it. I love it. Don't
What
get
I
me
was gonna
talking.
say, what I was gonna say about this movie in particular is that I often get frustrated with movies within movies and plays within plays because I don't feel like the quote unquote fake art lives up to how the characters like perceive the fake art. Like, in a movie, somebody could go, "You got to see this painting. It's the greatest painting in the world." And then they actually like show it, and you're kind of like, I don't know if it lives up to that. So within this movie, I was really, really surprised because I found that the play that they were rehearsing in the movie, the fake quote unquote play, I was getting invested in the play. I was like,
I
"This is a great
know.
play."
Yeah.
Me too.
Well,
And
like,
I love
you
the
have to-
staging of it at the end.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
how they
It's
had-
very
I love the staging
sleek.
of that play.
And the set design was sick, that
Oh, yeah.
the way that they staged it too. I was like, I would go and see that. That looks great.
Yeah,
Oh, me
the
too.
fact that it has like the film in front of it on the projector, and then and then that would pull up, and then they'd have all that. Yeah, I found it. I mean, so okay, so because I don't know if this play was written, and then you base it like that's also fascinating. Of like, or do you write it as you're writing the film, or do you write the play first and just pick scenes from it? Yeah, I don't. That's fascinating, but okay, so this play, it's about this way. So she is a head of a company, right? That she's inherited from her father. Why do I think that? Was that what happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then she is
Helena.
Yes, Helena. Yes. And then and then what's the other the younger
Sigrid.
That's
Sigrid.
right. She starts to work for the. I don't know. I'm trying to walk through the plot of this play. So she gets hired and everything. My question is, how does the snake tie into the play? Was that ever explained?
I have no idea.
I don't think it was.
It's the
it was
name of the
inspired
play.
by the landscape,
Okay,
right?
so here's how I
Wilhelm,
put it together.
Uh-huh.
Right at the end,
Yeah.
and it's really Kristen Stewart that tells you this
Okay.
right before she walks out of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, and I mean, this is like the last scene with her. That it's about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see the snake of these clouds going through the mountains unless you see it from a certain perspective. Just like, Juliet couldn't see Helena because she played the younger version. So she couldn't see that it's just a perspective. They're the same character in both plays, but it's the perspective that they're looking at it from.
Yes.
And that's where Valentine, the character that Kristen Stewart plays, she explains that at the end.
Yes.
As she leaves her there in that perspective of seeing these
that's what the
clouds.
director was saying, was that the director was suggesting snake was the clouds representing trouble long times from far away. Yeah.
I think, though, that Ava agreed with me on that one.
Yes.
Ava rarely agrees with me, but I think she agreed with me on that one.
The director
respect.
sort of saw that the idea that was saying that these are the same character just on different points in their lives, like and that like it's just an extension of sort of yourself in that sort of way. And that the director was saying that, and even there was a part about how the original playwright was working on a sequel to this where that character was going to play that, and so that was also an interesting sort of like just these little kernels of I don't know. There was a lot of interesting little, just one line off things about the state of film within this universe, or the state of art within this universe, is also it's close to ours, but not. I found that to be very fascinating too.
I think to pull on the thread that Ava just put on there,
The
and to her
resistance
it
to
was a
aging.
resistance to aging. I think
Absolutely.
I would agree with that, and sort of.
Well,
Basically,
I
in the
mean,
scene where is it Chloe? Is that the girl's name? That's playing the young.
That's what
yeah,
the actress's name
yeah.
is. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So in the last scene with her, where she says nobody cares about Helena.
Yes.
Okay, to me that's the age portion of it. Is
Hmm.
because as a and the same thing with Juliet's character when she was young, and she's very adamant about it. She talks about it a lot
Hmm.
throughout the course of the movie that nobody cares about Helena because she's not young,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? In reality, it's the other way around. You really should care about Helena because
Hmm.
you're young and see what I mean? So,
Yes.
anyway,
Yeah, I
Mm.
think the
sorry
whole
to
thing
say
was
that, but
about aging, was about sort of how like she was scared
yes.
to be playing this older character and
Mhm.
like what that would be sort of giving like, admitting that her age and everything. And I think that plays a huge part in that third act where she meets with that young director of like sort of saying, no, the difference was that like now you're going to be playing Helena. There's something interesting about you. You have an ageless sort of quality, and that's the difference between you and the lady who played Helena before, is that there's something sort of timeless about what you're bringing to that. There's people who are talented and who aren't, or
Well,
who
yeah,
have an X factor that it's undeniable, and that's sort of
yeah.
what is he's
Because
saying
she
about her.
says to him, "You're basing your judgment about me on films you saw when I was young," and that's when he
Hmm.
tells her, "No, it's because you are timeless." And
Yes.
just kind of a little fun fact about Juliet:
Hmm.
she played in this movie a character that's 40 years old. It's been
Hmm.
20 years since she was 19 or 20 when she played the younger character.
Yes.
The reality is Juliet was 53 when she filmed this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Hmm.
So that just is like adds that one more layer onto the aging aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
My
I like the
favorite my
the
favorite
casting.
line is a sea of gray hair. This is like when I go to the Roper meetings, Cade, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, this is a sea of gray hair that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mean so
Sea of
the
gray.
people who were there at the
Yeah.
awards thing or whatever, at the induction
Yeah,
or
it's
Oh
a
yeah.
whatever.
sea of gray hair. I kind of love that part,
Mm.
and that I love that he included in some of Christian's lines where she says she has a part where she says there they were talking about a script that Juliet was supposed to read, and it was like, well, there are werewolves involved for whatever reason,
Uh-huh.
and it quotes TMZ on a self-destructive young starlet and adds with a shrug, "Celebrity news, it's fun." She praises the same starlet, which is the Joanne
Mhm.
Ellis, for being not completely antiseptic, like the
Mhm.
rest of Hollywood, brave enough to be herself. Okay, if that's not Kristen Stewart, making
Mhm.
a little statement there,
Well, I think there
I
was a
don't know
lot
what is.
about that character that was supposed to be Chris. I mean, like there was the whole thing about her having an affair with a established artist
Oh, that's
who was
right.
married, and that
Yeah,
was a
that's right.
Mm.
huge scandal for her.
Huge. Well,
I
yeah,
didn't
because it
even
was
put
one
that
of our directors.
together. Oh
Hmm.
my
I
god.
know.
Yeah.
That was a
Hmm.
huge standard. Nobody killed themselves, though, or tried to, did
Yeah,
they?
I don't think so. But Donald Trump
Not in
tweeted
this
about
one.
it way back in the day. I don't know if you remember that. He got into
That's
a
right. He
whole
tweeted to
line.
Robert Patton.
Yeah, he
Said he
did.
needed
It
to
was
get a
like,
hold of his woman.
yeah,
No,
it
you're
was.
serious? He said
Yeah,
that?
he said
That's
that back when he was
hilarious.
a celebrity gossip person.
Now I'm picturing Trump like watching this double feature, like personal shopper and Clouds. Like he's like sitting there like, what is
Mm,
this bullshit?
yeah.
Yeah, trust me, he
Um,
would never watch this.
maybe he
Maybe he might
enjoys
Google a couple of
entertaining.
scenes in it that he would
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, but
Yeah.
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 Oh God, we could do like 10, 15 minutes on just Trump talking about
Mm.
Oliver Assayas. That would be
I
so
know.
funny.
Doesn't make too much
Um,
sense. I was
yeah,
confused.
it's very
But
French. It's
very
very French.
French.
Um,
Everybody
no,
says.
I was gonna
Uh,
say I was so enraptured by Juliette Binoche's character. I think because of the fact that she just refused again and again to just look in the mirror and see where she's at and see
Mhm.
herself, for who she actually is. She clung so hard to like this image of herself that you know, just happens to be in the past, but maybe it was never real in the first place, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
She like um this movie's like all about, you know, people playing people and like characters playing characters and such. Like Joanne turns out not to be the way that you thought she would be when she actually does show up in the movie. But the first thing that Juliette Binoche says to her is, "Oh, like I've just seen your pictures," you know, something like that, or like, I've only seen the images of you," you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm thinking about that sea of gray hairline that you mentioned as well, and how dismissive that is to say, right? Like you sound like you're talking about like something that you wouldn't want to be a part of, right?
Right.
But then again, when she has an opportunity to say go into a different part of the world, like do these other movies that she thinks is bullshit, right? She refuses that as well. So she's still holding on to her sea of gray hair. She doesn't want to let it go, but she has
Mm-hmm.
contempt for it as well, you know? So she's on this like, I don't know, just this contradictory, self-destructive sort of thing. Like you can see the trajectory that she's on. It's just a little bit funny to me, like that a character in the movie can't read the play that they're actually doing and like see the parallels between what's happening to them in real life and the play that they're doing, because like the play is really, you know, about Juliette Binoche's character in real life, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
um
I think
and
it's just
meanwhile
about
she's,
our own inability to see ourselves and like in sort of the truth
yeah,
about ourselves and like and so they think of this as like an
yeah,
abstract view, but it's really is somewhat personal. And it seems like, you know,
yeah,
Kristen Stewart sort of sees that in a lot of ways and is trying to push her towards some
right,
sort of truth. But I think that that's an interesting. We haven't really talked about that performance of like she seems like someone who's like this is just her job. She really cares for Juliette Binoche's character, but it's and really wants her to like push her. But at the same time, this is sort of just a job that she has, and that sort of interesting things that's going on there with her is fascinating, and it's in how she's like, and that sort of, you know, blow up that they have. It kind of, I think, informs a lot with her character. I don't
correct
know.
me if I'm wrong, her character wanted to or wants to be an actress but is assisting her at the same time.
Hmm.
Is that
I
Kristen
don't think they
Stewart?
ever,
Kristen,
yeah, I don't think they ever made that clear.
Mm-hmm.
I
But she
think,
was talented. Like I think that's what's
yeah,
so crazy about it is like she's Kristen Stewart, and like she's very talented at acting alongside this veteran actress. Same in Personal Shopper. She's incredibly beautiful wearing these things, but she's still, there is a line that's like, no, you're over here, and and the high life and all that's over here, and you're not part of that. And they make it abundantly clear. Like she does not sort of respect her opinions, and she kind of diminishes them throughout it of like, you know, hey, well, I'm this veteran actress who's been in the business for all this time. I know how a character works and how writing is, and good writing and bad writing, and how to, you know, say these things, you know, stop giving me advice. But that's also what she desperately wants. She's wanting her to give her that, but she's upset with her for giving it to her. It's I don't know. It's a fascinating. It's a real life sort of. It feels real.
well, yeah. So somewhere, one of the reviews I read was
Mm-hmm.
like, you can just see Christian Stewart, you know, when they go, okay, that's a take, then turn to her assistant
Mm-hmm.
and have the same conversation. You know,
on the
it's like,
set
oh
of the
yeah, I
movie.
could, yeah,
Yeah.
totally see that happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? So anyway, but yeah, I think
Um,
it does come down to the relationship between the two of them,
mm.
you know, and what you want to hear versus what you should hear,
And I
and
thought it
that's
was
it.
it was teetering on the edge of like, you know, they had a whole conversation about like, you know, personal relationships. And then you find out, of course, that like that personal relationship is like within the world of the play that they're doing. But I
Mhm.
was like, is this going in like a, you know, lovers kind of direction? Because there
Yeah.
was just such an intimacy in that relationship, even though it was professional,
Mm-hmm.
that it was almost like there were some scenes when it was almost like a mother and daughter dynamic. There were some scenes when it
Yeah.
was a teacher and a student dynamic.
Mhm.
And then there were some scenes when it was like, oh no, these
Almost
are
a
like
romantic.
equal. These are
Yeah.
equals, and and they're like partners, really. Like by the end of it, like you kind of feel like
What complicates
Kristen
that
Stewart
further
can,
is that she's her
yeah,
employer, just like
Right.
how in the
right,
play it was
right,
Yeah.
and that's talked about how her relationship with the director was. And then you sort of think
right.
about, is this director doing the same thing with the young actress? Like this idea that these power dynamics of someone who employs somebody. I one of the descriptions was that there is this somewhat sexual tension between Juliette Binoche's character and Kristen Stewart. And I mean, it's sometimes there and everything, certainly there in the play that they're saying, and then these characters, these parallels are said. But I couldn't just help thinking that it seems like here Kristen Stewart is like, she's in this odd predicament of like, this is her employer and she's trying to, that's like, I feel like she's playing it that way. I feel like, I don't know, but that's the way that I interpreted it a little bit more.
I'm really glad that they didn't like literalize that, or they didn't have like the characters talk about it too much. Like I love how ambiguous that element of it was, like specifically, because then the movie would just go off on that whole tangent. That's not what it's
Yeah.
about, you know what I mean?
I think that was
But
the intent, was to
yeah,
keep it ambiguous.
I really
Yeah.
believed the intimacy between them, though, and I believed their relationship. And I don't think, I mean, I don't know if it's a testament to the director and the way that they work with actors, or the actors themselves, probably both. But I don't think anybody had a false moment between like the two of these movies. I thought the acting was great across the board,
Acting and
especially
the writing.
from the stiff upper lip kind of people, like I thought the relationship that Juliette Binoche had to that one actor from back in the day, I forget what his name was, but you know what I'm
Andre.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yes.
bald guy.
So rich,
You
all
know,
of these things, like that's such a rich thing for how minor it is in the story. Like it reaves through various points, and it's just brilliantly written and directed and acted. Yeah, I agree.
I particularly noticed the editing in Clouds because of all the fades. The fades were
Yeah.
like, okay, so I love a good crossfade in a movie, and
You don't get
but,
those too often anymore.
You don't get those too often in the modern day, but so they did it a few times, and I was like, "Oh, great, I love it." But then they really start going for it, and there were whole sequences where 10 minutes or 5 minutes would go by, and every single shot is just kind of like fading into the next one, and it creates this dreamy atmosphere. It definitely does.
That's true.
It definitely helps you feel like you're in this secluded space, even though you're wide open in the Alps, right? It's this like place that you come to talk about the art and to dig deep into the soul, and it really felt like a world was created through that editing.
Absolutely.
And also you have that bonkers sequence in the middle of the movie where Kristen Stewart drives somewhere, right? And the music starts up and it's like and she's like winding around these, and I'm like, wait, the tone just like totally switched up. Like what is this what is this like early 2000s new metal soundtrack going on? And I forget exactly where she went during that scene. She was going to like some house, but I just really appreciated the idea they would take a still image of Kristen Stewart. She's like standing there, right? And then they would overlay on top of that these like wild camera movements of driving.
Yes.
So at the same time that you get this feeling of momentum, you also have a still image on top of that. It was a really conflicting cinematic effect. And I thought psychologically, like Olivier Assayas was like playing with the cinema and the editing in a really interesting way during that scene.
And I think
shot
it's
reverse shot, you get it, but like with that kind of stuff, you play with it, it's great.
I think it's in those scenes, sort of seeing that Clouds and then Personal Shopper, it's in those scenes that he's just there with Kristen Stewart that you can tell that that's where he's like finding this vibe with this actress. And I think that was like seeing that later, you can sort of see those are the threads that he's pulling from in Personal Shopper. It's in these sort of scenes where she's like, I need time on my own to like that's not specifically in my job. And she's like leaving to go in to do these other things. That happens when they're at 2 points in the film. And it does seem like it was just maybe it seems spontaneous that this happens, that he goes and follows her on this sort of path that's like her trying to find some other. You don't really get a clue into what she's doing. Like she just sort of says it, but she is essentially saying like she needs time away from what is her job. And of course that is explored more in Personal Shopper, where they almost focus completely on that and not on what her actual job is. So yeah, I wanted the notes. Oh, go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say I just lost it. No, damn. Okay, sorry, continue.
I wanted to make note of the fact of how he's pulling from different. I love they've created this whole other world of Hollywood within this. So there's of course these superhero movies and things that we see her in the superhero movie, and the fact that the weird little references of like Scarlet Witch and Dr. Pretorius, which of course Scarlet Witch is a Marvel. We all know it was Scarlet Witch now, but at the time probably would have been I don't know. I guess about at that time it would have been a little bit before as she was making her appearances in MCU. But Dr. Pretorius, you would know Dr. Pretorius from film and everything. Dr. Pretorius is the.
They made that up.
No, Dr. Pretorius. This is one of my niche things I love. He was the villain in The Bride of Frankenstein. He was the evil scientist in Bride of Frankenstein. So yeah, just some of these weird amalgamations of, pop culture and everything. And then later they reference, she's like, oh, I saw you in that movie with Harrison Ford about the CIA. Yeah. And like, you're like thinking, oh, she's going to be like in Patriot Games or whatever. But, and then but then she said it was called something odd, like it was a made up movie. It was a made up movie. Barbers of something. Yeah. But she's like, yes, working with Sidney Pollack was great. And so like, you're like, know exactly the time period in which this fake movie was probably made, because he did. Harrison Ford did do 2 films with Sidney Pollack. He did Sabrina, and then he did Random Hearts was this other one that he did. It's like, so it was kind of like this weird mix of like Random Hearts and Patriot Games, of like where they kind of combine these sort of. So yeah, I don't know. I just love those little things, and you had to know like, oh, that was right in like the late '90s, like mid to late '90s that movie would have taken place in. And just this fake world in which this was the Hollywood that existed. Like you can see it, like it all makes sort of sense.
So this was 2014, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was gonna say I really I begrudgingly respect that Olivier Assayas made superhero movies in general look like dog shit. Like he really trashed it. Like I know he was on that set going like, no, make it look really bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also found it, the view on that's fascinating. Like, because she hates it. You can tell that like there is that sort of idea from French filmmaking, and even people in general, that's like there's enough of these superhero movies, and they're not high art by all means, and they're kind of lowering the whatever films or whatever. But then you see like Kristen Stewart, who's like making the exact opposite sort of claim of like these have merit or whatever, they pay the bills or whatever for these other things to happen. And so you sort of see this dialogue happening about art in general and all that. I found to be very fascinating. And the fact that like she's doing like the monetary stuff was interesting too. She just played a villain in a superhero movie, and she's like, I don't want to do that anymore, but it's helped before this other stuff. One of my favorite interactions was she's doing this play, and Kristen Stewart says, hey, this is trying to sell her that this is a great opportunity with this director, and then that it's and like why that this is a great perspective. And she's like, and also it pays well. And Juliet is like, I don't need the money or whatever. And you can just sort of tell like, well, I maybe too, if you don't need just this money, I'll take it or whatever. She has like this look on her, like, just, I don't know, she's working for this very wealthy person. And she's just like, I don't need it, or whatever. That doesn't matter to her.
But I also like how Kristen Stewart is like a fan of the director. She's like, you gotta work with him. He's so sick. His films are so shit.
Yeah.
And Julia Binoche is like, I do not give a fuck. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, she just wants to be left alone or whatnot. She wants to like be some like image of herself that she saw in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Kristen Stewart is trying to tell her that like your present like right now has value. You need to be here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the superhero movie thing was like kind of a metaphor for that larger conversation, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like there's value in this thing that you don't see any value in. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, it's almost quite similar to this play that you think is so valuable. If you just take some layer of like metaphor off of it, you know what I mean? When she's talking about like Zorgon and the blah 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 blah, you know what I mean? She's talking
Yeah.
about the emotional story underneath it, right? And that's all they do when they talk about the play is they
Mm-hmm.
talk about the emotional thing underneath. So um I I with movies like this, I have to just sit back and accept that the character is going to self-destruct. And it makes me really sad because I'm yelling at my screen going like, Juliette Binoche, wake up. Like you don't have to be like this. You don't have to do this. But I just, it's a tragedy and you got to go along with what the character's decisions are. And so I'm just kind of going like, Juliet, you don't have to do this to yourself, spare yourself. But she's just, I don't know, she's self-destructing in the way that the characters are in the play.
Yeah.
And she's struggling to understand the woman that she's playing, but she doesn't realize that she is the woman that she's playing. And
Mm-hmm.
she's also the woman that she's playing opposite. And she might be, everybody in this situation.
Yeah.
But if only she could see, if only she could have that perspective. Ooh, there's that word again. Yeah.
I think at the end when she approaches Joanne Ellis, and
Mm-hmm.
says, you might want to give it a pause
Mm-hmm.
here because that's
Oh
kind of how
yeah.
I played it. I give it a
Mm-hmm.
pause because it kind of draws out the suffering part of it, and I think that's the moment
Mm-hmm.
where she's informing the audience that we're watching
Mm-hmm.
that she gets it now.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, she
That
gets
like
it.
you have to sort of you're almost that we're both part of this whole thing like that
Mm.
Right.
you have to
Yeah.
give this other person the space because but I do
Yeah. Like
mhm. I think the whole
no, like
thing go ahead.
your performance affects my performance. My performance affects your performance.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're listening to each other, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And then she sort of is hit by the fact that like here's this young actress who doesn't understand it in everything and that maybe she was like that when she was younger. I do think that she
True.
didn't have
That's a 360 moment right there.
yes.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. So now, by the end of the movie, she finally sort of has that perspective that
Mm-hmm.
she was struggling so hard to see.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I know I felt devastated at the end when Chloe Grace Moretz, said some of those lines like,
Mm-hmm.
the okay, I love what they do with her character though because the movie sets her up to be this like almost antagonist or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's wild, she's unpredictable. Just wait till you meet her. And then when you do meet her, she's like, like literally the most like normal sort of I don't know, professional, like, easygoing kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
And then right at the end, you kind of see,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you see that ruthlessness that maybe you got a little bit of a taste of it with Juliette Binoche, but, she doesn't have it anymore. She doesn't have that clout anymore as an actress anyway. And, she can be pretty ruthless, but Joanne in the end is just like, I'm on top of the world and you can't tell me fucking shit, lady. And Juliette Binoche's character is like, oh my God, I finally get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Yeah.
finally like recognize, I don't know, the
Because
passage
it's
of
kind of what
time.
she was
Or,
talking about the
yeah.
old other actress. Like it was kind of similar language that she would talk about how she was like she was so wrapped up in whether or not her place in this and everything and and that she was dealing with inner things and everything and I didn't understand it and all that. Well, anyways, I guess we'll wrap it up with here. Diane, would you recommend this movie and what would you rate it?
Yes, I would recommend this movie. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it quite a bit. I think the perspective of youth versus maturity is the most interesting aspects of it. I love the fact that it's skinny dipping in a glacier lake, which is 10 times colder than a regular lake. And those two ladies actually jumped in it. you can't get glacier water that color. I mean, it only comes in that color, So anyway, I love that part of it. I'm going to give it a cognac.
Okay.
Perfect drink for them to order a cognac. I'll have a cognac.
Yes. Did they drink it all in this movie? What did they drink? What were they drinking?
They drank cognac. They ordered
Okay.
cognac.
Yeah,
She says, "I'll have
the
a-"
meeting scene,
Yeah.
lots of champagne because they were going to all those awards things
Or
and
champagne.
fancy places. Yeah.
No, I didn't see him drink
fact-
champagne as much as a cognac.
I was this close to bringing some white wine on
You know
the
what one looks
podcast.
like?
That's the closest thing I got to champagne, and I feel like these are like white wine movies. These are actually, she was drinking a lot of red wine. Juliette Binoche was, so yeah, maybe these are red wine movies. You can pair this double feature with a nice red.
Yeah.
Well, you may have to because I don't see a cognac. I thought there was a cognac.
Well,
on
there's
here,
the
but
little
not.
tumbler thing if you want that. It's the closest thing we can
Yeah.
get. Is that?
No, that's a bourbon.
Yeah.
Give me a red wine.
You want a red wine?
Yeah.
Okay. Luca, would you recommend this movie? What would you rate it?
I would definitely recommend this movie. I think this movie's a little bit more accessible than the other one, to, the average moviegoer, I suppose. If you're a fan of actors in scenes just really going for drama and dynamic and behavior and character, this movie is for you because you've got that on like 3 or 4 different levels in any given scene. And I feel like, honestly, a lot of these actors, I might have never seen them better than this movie. I mean, the performances in this are really like the main drawing point. But you get the added benefit of amazing scenic imagery of the Alps. You get the added benefit of this sort of like meta cinema kind of thing with like an intertextuality to the whole thing. You're not sure what level of reality you're on. And you're also thinking about the movie as you're watching the movie itself and getting lost in it. So your mind is going on like 3 or 4 different levels throughout the whole thing. And I think that that's a really fun experience,
Yes.
I would definitely recommend this. What am I going to give it? Should I do an emoji this time? What would be a good one? Maybe, is there an iPhone emoji? There's like an emoji of the phone.
I'm sure there
Yeah.
is.
That'd be good, yeah. So I would give this, I would give this like 90 iPhones out of 100 iPhones.
Okay.
I really enjoyed myself. I got wrapped up in the drama. I mean, if you want drama, this movie has a lot of interesting drama in it.
Yes. There you go. This
Oh,
hopefully
great.
represents it. 90 iPhones out of
Nice.
100.
Nice. Juliette Binoche would hate that.
Yes, I would definitely recommend this movie. I thought it was expertly performed and expertly written. It was beautiful in all the ways. I thought it was very moving. It tells a 360 view of Juliette Binoche's character. I thought that was anytime you can sort of see that from a perspective of someone who is aging and sort of, or is able to come up, it's a coming of age story for, middle-aged person, I thought, an actress. And that is a beautiful, beautiful film. I have to give it a theater mask emoji. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'll go for.
Going to go with the theater.
The theater. Tragedy and comedy and all that stuff. I was going to go snakes, but Ava went with snakes. So there's the snakes. Yeah. Recommend it. I recommended it all around. Everyone. I think the other thing to sort of mention is that, we'd mentioned this before, I think last week when we were talking about it, that, this is, for her performance in Clouds of Sils Maria, Kristen Stewart was the first American to ever win the French equivalent of an Oscar for her performance. And that's the first time. There's been other people nominated. Jessica Lange and Sissy Spacek has been nominated, but she's the only one who's ever won, which is extraordinary. Or first one. I don't know if there's been people since then, but yeah, when it happened, it was big news for this performance. It was Best Supporting.
I mean, if you can hold that many scenes with Juliette Binoche and you hold your own, then shoot, there you go.
Yeah.
And I would recommend people, because I was trying to, I looked up her when she won Best Supporting Actress for The English Patient, when she won that Oscar, Juliette Binoche. Don't watch that. It's just one of the saddest videos ever. So she, one thing, Kevin Spacey presents the award and does a horrible routine with Billy Crystal before it happens. But in it, like, Lauren Bacall's nominated, and she's like, and she doesn't win, and it's the saddest thing. And she's worked her entire career, and this is her nomination, and you could tell how heartbreaking it is for her to lose this. And I'm like, oh, so don't watch it. It will break your heart. So.
Was that she nominated for the Barbra Streisand movie?
Ooh, I don't remember what it was.
I think that was what The Mirror, whatever.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah,
yeah,
The Mirror, something. Yeah,
yeah. She was nominated for that. She was so good in it too, man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If y'all would like to watch a more recent film with Juliette Binoche, she was just in the Claire Denis movie, Both Sides of the Blade. And she was amazing in it, as usual. It's like a very realistic drama. So, she's in her lane.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look it up and everything. Well, now we're going to head into our preview time, in which we preview our upcoming attractions for next week's Double Feature Movie Club.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Let's take a look at what's coming your way. Well, Luca, you're officially on one of our longer podcasts, so I want you to know that. I think the only ones who's ever longer is Ava, who's in the chat. So that's great.
I'm coming for the record.
The next week's movies are two movies that talk. Hopefully, Diane, you're looking up where these are streaming at.
I'm trying to.
Okay. So these are two movies about the rise to music stardom, and we'll have Alex, a guest that we have on often, will be on next week. Co-host of my other podcast will be previewing. Cade and Friends will be starting also next Wednesday, the new season. Anyways, we'll be talking about the movie Her Smell from 2014. Is that what my note says, or is that 2019? That's a good question. Her Smell, which stars, must be something.
More recent, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 2019. That's what probably is right. Stars Elizabeth Moss, Cara Delevingne, Dan Stevens. They're all in that movie. And then the other film we'll be watching is Hearts Beat Loud, which has Nick Offerman, who was just great in Last of Us recently. We'll ride that train while that's there. And then also Kiersey Clemons, who I absolutely love. I love her in so many things. Dope was one of my favorite films of the past decade, and she's in that, and she's extraordinary. But yeah, that's the two of them.
You're gonna have to Google it yourself.
Oh, you don't
find where you can watch it.
Okay, so you don't know where it's at.
Dead.
Oh,
Yeah, so it should be exciting stuff. They're both music related things. Looks like Her Smell is on Hulu, so
Okay.
Pretty simple. And the other one you'll have to rent. Hearts Beat Loud. But yeah, should be interesting. So these are always movies that we haven't seen before. It's been on our watch list, so should be interesting to see. This time we did a pretty good job. But we'll see next time if we got some stinkers there. Who knows? Sometimes we have stinkers.
We do. Big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the movie that y'all hated like the worst out of all of them? Do you have a pick for like the worst one on this
It's a good,
podcast?
it's a good question. Last season my worst one was High Life. I did not like High Life at all.
Ooh, hot take.
Neither one of us
Yeah.
liked My Life. Yeah, we neither one of us did. But also last season, my worst movie was his favorite. So
Yeah.
that just goes to show.
Second favorite, but yeah.
Okay.
Which was it was Jesus. It was, what was it?
The ghost one.
No, the ghost one, A Ghost Story, I really liked.
The ghost story.
But
Yeah.
no, there was also the other one that we the guy who did Mandy. He did this
Panos Cosmatos.
Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. I never count that movie because I couldn't actually watch it all.
Yeah,
I made 30 minutes and that was it. I was done.
that was when she wasn't on the podcast that week.
No, I wasn't.
But
And
it
there
was
no reason for me to watch it. 'Cause it was
I loved it. So, but no, I mean, we watched The Bling Ring and that was bad. We watched I'm trying to remember the other
the one with the guys
Endless.
that are.
The Endless. Is that what she's gonna say?
Oh, The Endless,
I've heard of that.
Don't bother.
No to that.
No, I was
evidently
Okay.
they're making. They have this new series that's on Netflix now, right?
Yeah. They did Synchronicity, which was a Netflix movie. That was
Okay, yeah. See, I've heard of those filmmakers before, but I've never seen one of their films.
It's amazing somebody funded them to do something after The Endless.
people liked it though. People liked it. I don't
I don't know how.
Yeah,
It was The Endless movie.
And then last week we had a movie, our first movie back. We all did not recommend, and that was The Wizard of Lies last week, and it was a Bernie Madoff movie, and it was sad because it's Barry Levinson, it's Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer, and it's about Bernie Madoff.
But
It wasn't good.
It was still 100 times better than The Endless.
Yeah, I agree. I don't imagine it's going to be at the worst of the year list. It was just kind of middling and long.
Sometimes a terrible movie is just what you need, but sometimes you're like, this movie will literally never end, ever.
That's how it was a good title
The
for
Endless.
that movie.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on here, Luca. I'm happy to have you on here and everything. I think you bring some interesting takes and everything. It's great to have you on.
Oh, hey, I cannot thank you both enough for having me on and inviting me. This has been so fun. I mean, I would, watch any of this stuff even if I wasn't on the podcast because I just love watching movies and I love talking about them with people. So
Yeah,
thanks for, inviting me into your thing.
absolutely. And you will be back later in the season too, right? Have we later? So we'll look forward to that and everything. But where can people follow you and do your
Give us all
plugs?
the info.
Okay, so I make films. All the movies are basically on YouTube. Look up Luca Silver. It should pop up, but I don't know if the search engine likes me that much. So, Luca Silver across the board, right? So Twitter, Instagram, Luca Silver 01. That's what I use. A lot of films are on there. A lot of bonus material. I like to post the behind the scenes to my work because I love special features on DVDs. So I try to do that.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go find this because I love the behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
I'm trying to, tell people how the movies are made so that, I can share whatever, Okay, Luca Silver across the board. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram and Twitter. So at Luca Silver 01 is where you can find me. And check out all of my films on YouTube because that's really what my life is all about. I love making art. I love filmmaking. And we try to spend a long time making a piece of art and then really, putting it out and letting it live. So go check those out and maybe, it'll excite you. some of those films. So link in the description of this video, I think.
Yes. Link to YouTube.
Like and
everything.
subscribe.
Like and
Press all
subscribe.
the buttons. Yeah.
So we like to
Smash
say
that,
here.
notification button and donate
Destroy
to
it. Yeah.
donate to Hidden Flora, actually, though,
Mhm.
legit. Like, we're trying to make a movie and we're all just, I don't know, we're all like indie filmmakers, and
Absolutely.
literally like dollars on the budget is like food in the crew's mouth. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anybody who'd like to help out, we love you and appreciate you.
Absolutely. And thank you for being on. We'll have you on, of course, again later. And like and subscribe to all of our stuff too. I guess we tell them to click all the buttons.
Yeah.
Click all the buttons.
Every button.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Smash them.
Rate us 5 stars, all that stuff. Well, thanks
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Oh, no problem. It was a lot of fun.
Great to meet you.
Yeah.
Great to meet the both of you too. What better way to meet than talking about these movies?
That's right.
We love talking about movies. That's what we do here every week. So great. Thanks for joining. See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.